Legal aid for us is access to justice. And if we don't have access to justice, we feel like that's injustice.
Legal aid is like the NHS in many ways. It's a kind of a public service that exists to ensure that people can enforce their rights.
Legal aid can help ordinary people to escape abuse, to access the benefits that they need, to escape destitution, persecution. It prevents families from being ripped apart. And any one of us at any time in our lives could suddenly find ourselves faced with a life-changing issue where we're required to navigate the complex and confusing justice system.
I work in rough sleeping casework, so you see it all the time. People who should have had access to housing through their councils, who should have care assessments, but they don't.
As a person who don't have any legal experience or any legal knowledge, it's very hard to deal in this process. Most of my friends, even myself, it's very hard to find a legal aid solicitor.
I had to go through more than 50 solicitor firms searching for an aid solicitor.
Para decirles que el problema más grande que tenemos los emigrantes hoy por hoy es no contar con abogados.
There's not enough people doing the work, so often people, even if they contact the law firms say no, and then they don't have anywhere else to turn to.
Where can I go? Where can I go? Where can I go looking for help?
Legal aid rates haven't been increased since 1996. One of the things that we're seeing is how difficult it is to meet all of the administrative and bureaucratic requirements of legal aid.
The Southwest is widely acknowledged to be one of the most severe legal advice deserts across England and Wales, meaning it's one of the hardest places to access immigration legal advice.
In London, we're relatively privileged, if we can call it that, but in large parts of the UK, particularly in the north of England, there is huge swaths of places that don't have any legal aid providers at all.
All the law firms seem to be at capacity. There's so much work to be done and not enough people doing the job.
One person's doing the job of 3 people sometimes.
Legal aid advice should be available for everyone, no matter how much money you have, your status, or where you're coming from.
The changes I'd like to see to the legal aid system, broadly and generally, go way beyond the government's latest introductions of a slight uplift in fees. I think we need to reverse the cuts to legal aid in the first instance, which have devastated the sector since 2011.
Councils, the government needs to do more to make the public aware that legal aid exists and how to access it and who's eligible.
Just give us the resources that we need in order to better represent our clients.
We want to bring MPs to the front line of legal aid to showcase the work that legal aid lawyers across the country do day in, day out in serving their communities.
What makes me angry about the legal aid system is the enormous amount of underfunding and the fact that over the last 15 years, beyond the small bit of uplift that we've seen in the last month or so, the system feels like it's crumbling. Ultimately, it's important that an MP knows that, especially when they're in a position to, change the law and make things happen, which is what they're represented to do.
Come to where I work on any given day, for example. People fighting for their right to live in a habitable home. Parents challenging the exclusion of their children from education. And individuals who have fled persecution trying to establish a new life for themselves.
Our initial involvement was to invite one of our local MPs to meet with us to raise her awareness around the challenges facing legal aid.
We've invited our MP to come and see the work that we do in our clinic because we think it's really important to build a relationship between our elected representative and the advice services that exist in that area.
We want MP to talk about this issue in Parliament, make everybody's voice to be heard in our community.
And I was very pleased to actually go to one of these Meet Your MP event. It was so important to be able to speak to people about their experiences, because a lot of the time that's one of the things that's missing. We in here talk about policy and sometimes we don't often have names and lives to put to those policies.
People are facing challenges and experiencing suffering on multiple different fronts. What's really important is to make sure that people have the highest quality legal advice.
Access to justice is absolutely fundamental to the rule of law and to ensuring that we live in a society that gives opportunity for all.
And there really needs to be a wholesale reform of the system so that, good legal aid providers are not closing their doors. I want everyone who works in the sector to stay on our back, to be an advocate for legal aid.
There are so many reasons why we have to fix our justice system in the way it is, and the first thing we have to do is make sure that people are getting the right advice. If you are an MP, please, please, please take the opportunity to speak to your constituents.
MPs and this Labour government need to understand that we cannot afford to wait to make these urgently needed reforms to the legal aid system. In other words, the legal aid system needs urgent attention, not just palliative care.
We are asking you to make our voice to be heard out there, the voice of your community. MP who work for us, and we vote you for that as well. We need you to fight with us, get involved in our campaign. Thank you.